Hi. Okay, this is our next project, and this is a red amaryllis, or multiple amaryllis I guess is how you say it. When you're looking at reds that are printed or photographed, they can be a little bit hard to translate when they get really dark because the red kind of takes over some of the shape and it just doesn't translate very well. So I did a black and white of this too, which comes in your kit, because I just thought it might help, particularly with this really dark flower here. Now in amaryllis, you don't really have to be able to make sense out of all this, but I thought I would explain it just a little bit. Each one of these stalks has three blooms that come off of it. I think some of them have four, but most of them have three. And they all bloom at one time or close together. So you have this flower with the three blooms coming off of it. The way that these are grouped, you really can't tell what's going on here. And you don't have to. You could just sort of indicate some of these shapes particularly, and it'll read like flowers no matter what you do to it. So don't get overly concerned. Try to do what you see, but don't get all nervous about it. Also, each one of these blooms has got 6 petals. It's got 3 big petals on the back and 3 slightly smaller ones in front, and then really long stamens. So what I have chosen to do here is I have chosen to mask the stamens here and here. And I'm going to maybe make mine kind of greenish or something instead of the red, because on some of them they are greenish. And I think that that'll be more exciting piece that way. So I went ahead and did the masking because I think everybody that's working from this online is very familiar with masking already. So what I have here is, by the way, I recommend pre-wetting some of your colors and putting the lid on for a while, particularly if you haven't been painting very much, which my impression is that some of you are distracted with a lot of other things like not dyeing. So if that's the case, your colors may be extra dry the longer they've gone and not been used. So I would recommend wetting them down, and the ones that I'm going to recommend you wet down are basically your Quin Gold and Quin Rose and Quin Coral. And we're just going to start out with Quin Coral, and I have a little bit, you don't need to pre-wet this because you don't need much of it, but a little bit of New Gamboge. Okay, so let's just start out. There's not a place on camera for all of this. I hate this. But, okay, I will start out like this. And by the way, these will be in the mail. Sometime this weekend I will get these in the mail. I'm just getting the video out ahead of it instead of behind, because I'm going ahead and starting this with classes tomorrow. So I am going to paint in very, very wet and juicy. Pretty much anything that's an amaryllis. And some of these lines can get confusing, so you need your photo to work with. And this thing right here, this is sort of a brownish purplish something, but I'll go ahead and put this color on it too. I've got a little spot masked here, which I'll show it. I'll try to remember to show it in a little bit. So let's see. Very wet, you know, like sloshy wet. This is going to be a fairly loose looking piece. I have a second amaryllis that we're going to paint differently. So, I'll show that in a minute too. Okay, let me get some of this down. And while it's wet, you know, I'm not going to get totally bent out of shape about whether I get any skips in any places or anything. Here. Okay. You see how wet that is? I mean, that's staying really wet so that I can go back and I can charge in little bits of yellow here and there. And I don't have a particular plan with this. There are areas in the picture that are a little bit more yellow than others. And you could let that guide you if you wanted, but you can just do it. The main thing is to have some color changes in this. And of course, a lot of this area is going to get a whole lot darker too. But yeah, that's kind of a pretty look there. And because it was really wet when I added the color in, you know, you've got some flow back, but it's not going to blossom. Not that a blossom would bother me particularly, but it's not going to blossom. So let's come up here. Oh, I was going to explain a couple of things. There's a little spot right here. That's negative space. That's going to have the background coming through. And I masked it on here. I've got it drawn on your draw out piece with a little X on it, just to help you find it, because it would be almost impossible. I would forget that was there. And so I'm doing this just so I keep it. And all it is, if you don't, you know, if you mess up, it's not a big deal. But all it is a little pop of negative space there. This is going to be like a cobalt teal in the background. Really, really pretty. And this, and by the way, that's so pretty, it wouldn't hurt if you wanted to make these pink instead of red. Go for it. But that's just to keep that little variety of sizes of shapes in here. We've got a lot of variety of shapes, but, and by the way, I put a few little curlicues in here, which don't actually exist, but I felt like it. You're welcome to do that if you want. They're not on the draw out. Up here is the top of the picture, and so you see that you have this background area here, which is actually a window, a weird perspective on a window, and it's in the photo. Right here you see a light blue, and you could do it as a light blue if you wanted to do that. You can see like tree limbs and stuff there in the background. If you wanted to do that, I'm going to go for something a little stronger, maybe a little more exciting. But I've got those little curlicues coming out of it. But the thing is that you can see that you have an edge there, and then the flowers burst out past that edge. And that's always a really pretty design effect if you can have that going on. Oh, and by the way, when you look at this, I did move this flower, which kind of looks like it's coming right up out of the center of this other one. So I shifted it over a little bit. As I did, it's a little nearer the center of the painting, but I don't think it's major enough that it's going to make a difference. Okay, so I've got my mixture of coral. See, my mixture is really thin. And, of course, I paint past the edges. Some people like to tape around their edges. I do not, particularly if I think that I might ever put something in a frame. I don't want those edges taped because they almost never get taped exactly square. And then when you go and you get a mat cut and you try to put a mat around it and maybe make that edge show or not make it show, either way, you have kind of a mess there. It's real nice if you're doing little postcards and little things, because it's a pretty look to have a white edge on it, but it's for show. But if you're going to possibly mat it later, I find that it's usually a mistake. And on this, if you put tape around it, you would be taping off part of the composition, and I don't think that would serve you well. There. I love, love, love the way that pink modulates with that that yellow. See how, as this is going in, it's getting a little paler. See how gorgeous that is? It's just a beautiful look. Okay, so here we go again. Now, this one I'm painting pink, even though it's going to be a deep red, because it just helps to go ahead and get a little bit of color down. It's going to take a little bit of buildup. The thing is that what this is going to do for you is, you see, we're starting this out very light because you want to leave a few light areas. Maybe you might even make some of them a little lighter than what they are there, simply because that'll give your painting a lot more dimension. Like I said, this red can get kind of, you can lose a lot of shape when you're working with a deep red. So I think it's best to start it out light and then build on it. Some people have a habit of going for that really strong red right out of the bat, and it works against them. At least it will on this particular piece. Maybe it doesn't always work against them. By the way, there's a tiny speck of, let's see if I'm on camera here. There's a tiny speck of negative space right there that I'm wanting to keep. And we'll just go straight on into the bloom that's over here. When you trace this, there are a lot of bumpy, irregular little edges. Oops, I messed up a spot. Don't smooth those out. Keep those like little irregular areas, because those add something. At least I feel like they do. So I'm working pretty fast. As long as you're working really wet, you could slow down if you wanted to be more careful about staying in the lines, because I know some of you like to stay in the lines, and it's okay. It's not a sin to stay in the lines. Don't let anyone intimidate you about that. I'm just putting this in here because I like to see it. You know, I like every stage of a painting to have something pretty about it. Doesn't always happen, but it always makes me feel good. If I don't see something pretty happening, sometimes I get kind of discouraged. Oops, so let's suck that up, because that's running all over my print here. Okay, there is step one. That's kind of pretty, just like that, isn't it? Yeah, I like that. I might decide I want to do one where I leave some more pinks in this. Actually, you'll see how a pink one might look as we build it up to go red. Gee, I like those colors. Okay. Okay, here's that little spot that needs to mask out, or that you might want to mask out. Like I said, if you don't get it, it's not going to be a big deal. And I made another mistake right here. This back line, I ran it through that flower. And I'll mark these out, but when you see that, know that's just something under there you need to ignore. Okay. Well, I have changed my plans. I was going to start with more reds in here. But now that I look at this is still pretty. It's not near as pretty as it was when it's wet, is it? But I think instead that we'll go ahead and put some greens in. It would just be nice. So let's go with, I want a nice yellow green. This time I think I'll just use my Nicolazzo yellow because it's so transparent and pretty, and I suppose that I'm just in the mood for it. Okay, and we could put that with, oh, well, I tell you what. I'm going to be using a lot of a color that I haven't used much lately, so all the new people that I've told to go out and buy a color, I didn't tell them to buy this one. So I'll just supply it. This is Cobalt Teal, and I just happen to love, love, love it, and we're going to be using it in the background. It's sort of an opaque color. Well, it's very opaque, but it's got a lot of brightness to it. And I'll just pull a little bit of yellow over in here to it. Let's see. That's nice. I think I'd like to go a little yellower. Well, maybe even a little yellower. Just keep going here. Actually, I like the way that looks. Now it's all about the same. We're going to keep it pretty light at first, again, because we're going to be putting shapes in. You know, I left this thing out right here, and I moved this over to there. I might just wind up coming back and putting this green back in here. I'll have to think about it. Okay, so I'm just going to paint this in. Again, really juicy, and we're going to keep it pale. And the main reason I'm doing this right now, I just want to have this in my field of vision as I'm building these up. It will have some influence over what I do. Oh, here's a spot that's got a little bit more blue in it. Oh, let's just add a little of that. Here, maybe there. Okay, that's nice. Well, let's do more of the same thing on this side then. Whoops. See, I am out of the lines. It doesn't bother me a bit. But I know some of you don't feel that way about it. And like I said, it's okay. Everyone's paintings look different. Everyone's personality comes through in their paintings. I don't want to change your personality, and I want your personality to be able to show in your paintings. So I don't tell you how you got to do it. We'll just pull these on down. In fact, I might want to pull that on down for another reason. Let's give myself, see, this is my spare room down here. Let's give myself a little nice size block of color right there. Don't want it to get in the way of the actual painting, because I might want to test some color on that. Oh, well then I might want to test some more color over here. Let's just give ourselves, again, another place to test. Okay. Well, I don't have to go dry this if I can just keep my elbows out of it, because I can go ahead and do something else here. So I already have some mixture made up, but I'm going to make up more. This is just Quin Rose and Quin Gold. And that makes my favorite red. You know, we've probably all of us got our own favorite mixtures. Those of you that have experience with this and you want to do something different, go with it. or do a little test first and then go with it. So I'm putting in some pretty concentrated rose, and then let's get some, again, very concentrated Queen Gold. And I already had some dried, whoops, oh well. I already had some dried paint down here. This just makes a really good red. So I don't bother buying quinacridone red because I can pretty much make that without having to have another tube of paint. So there we go. Okay, what am I going to do first? Here's a little spot where I can test. And, oops. I'll get a 1/2 inch brush. Okay. Let's just see what this looks like. See, that's pretty rich. But then if I want to make some soft edges on it, I don't have much room here to work. If I want to make some soft edges on it, let's see what a lighter version of that would look like. I didn't dry this over here, so I already know that that's going to be pretty good because I've already done a little test pilot thing. Okay, so here's what I need to decide. I don't need to decide where I'm going to put my darks in. I could do it that way. I've got two choices about how to go about this. Okay. Let's put some real strong darks in. We've got our light in. Let's put some strong darks in, and then we'll go back with a mid-tone later. How's that? It's real easy to look at this and find my darks. But again, you might, oops, prefer looking at this. Particularly down in this area, you can tell more about the shapes. That's really the reason I did this, was this particular area. Yeah, see, it's because it's so hard to see what's going on down there. You really can tell more in the black and white. That's a good thing for a lot of you to do when you're working on your own projects. If you're not sure if it would help you, just pull a black and white print to see. I think most people have got some ability on their computers to do that. So while that is wet, that's going to have kind of a hard edge there. Doesn't bother me at all because we're going to be putting a mid-tone in. And some of this may come loose with the mid-tone because this is a pretty strong mixture. So let's see. Very darkest darks. Right over here is a dark. By the way, I have not drawn these shapes in on your draw out. So if you're uneasy with this, you could take a pencil and draw on this. I would wait until I had this first layer of paint on, and then I would draw on it. Because make sure that the paper is really, really dry when you do that. So I'm just going to pull out a nice little shape there, and I want to get it up past my line. Remember, this isn't all the painting. The painting stops right across here. Okay. There's also a really strong dark there and a little bit there. Okay. See, the thing with using a strong dark is that then if you paint other layers on top of it, it may come up. But the thing is here, when we're putting this mid-tone in, I think we'll like what happens. Okay, so maybe I do that. And see, that's not exactly like this. Don't feel that you've got to get it all perfect. Oh, here. So I added some water, but see how I'm squeezing that brush out? So I can pull that up. Oh, I like the way that spot looks. That's a really nice spot. I should try to make that happen more often. Okay, let's put another dark in right here. Into that little V shape. Could add a little bit right there if I wanted to. I'm not going to come down and combine it with this though. I'm going to just add water around the edges of it and just make it do a little thing there. What is the little thing it's doing? Well, I don't know, but you see it. There's a thing. Okay. Add a little shadow right there. You know, I'm changing my mind about what I want to use as a mid-tone on these. As I work with this. And I already did a little, like I said, a little palette test there. See, now you can see some nice shapes going on in here. Oh, we need a little thing there too. This is a separate bud from this flower back here. Not that we really care. Not that we have to know that. I already told you didn't need to know that, didn't I? Just make a little shape like that. This will be good because my class will have this to look at tomorrow. Gosh, I hope I turned that video on. Yeah, I did. Okay, there we go. That looks good, just like that. We might not have to do a lot more to this with the midtones. We might keep them kind of... Oh, well, we'll see. Okay. So let's go over here and work on these, because I just like the way that's all going. Maybe this won't have to get quite so dark. Okay. So here we have this really nice little dark area right here where the bud is opening up and there's this little shadow there. Let's put that one in first. I think I didn't quite finish that spot of the drawing. This side of it's darker than this part, but there's a very crisp edge along here. So I'm washing my brush out. I'm raking. Maybe I should put this where you can see it. Does that show? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to wash my brush out. I'm going to rake it off. Then I might bleed a little of the extra water just out of the center, not out of the tip. I hope that's enough water left in there. We'll have to see. Yeah. So that's going to pull it along over here. You know, that may go solid. I think what I'll do now is I think I'll squeeze that brush all the way out. And I'm going to come along here and just suck some of that up like that. Okay. There's a little This is another petal that's separate from this. It's in behind it. So it's darker. So again, we just take a little bit of water, a little bit of paint right here. That whole thing's pretty much darker. If you paint it all darker, that would be fine. But I'm going to take, now I need just a tiny bit of water because we only have a tiny bit of space. If I put a lot of water down there, it'll just turn into a big mushy all over puddle. And I'm actually trying to put a little bit of shape on it. Now I wipe the brush off some more and I'm going to suck that up a little bit like that. Okay. Well, there's a deeper shadow here on the underside of this petal right here. Is that showing what I'm doing here? Okay. The underside of this petal right here is almost like a little triangle right there that's extra dark. Now, you should dry in between this. What I'm doing is I'm leaving a little space there, which doesn't hurt anything. I don't think it's quite ideal, but it's not really hurting anything. So there, we're going there, and then we're going to get pretty wet, and again, I got to leave a little space there. But if you'd just gone and dried it, then you wouldn't have to worry with this. Don't always do what you see me doing. Okay, I think that's going to work. I'm going to dampen it on up this way so I don't get a hard edge. There, that's cool. Now there's a little shadow under here. Let's go to a smaller brush. And I always dampen my brush to kind of prime it. And I'm squeezing this out because this brush is bigger than what I need. So I'm squeezing it out so there's not a lot of paint in the body. And then I'm only dipping the tip into the paint. So it's like I have a smaller brush. Now what was it I was doing? Oh, okay. I'm making a shadow underneath where this piece of another petal overlaps. And I'm not going to soften the edge on that. I'm going to leave that crisp. Like that. Okay. And if you're good with round brushes, you can work with a round brush. If you're new to this, I really recommend the flats. They're also called squares. Let's see now. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of shadow here and a lot of shadow down under there. And there's a little extra funny shape right there. You could do these separately if you wanted to. Or you can work it kind of together. Again, I'm kind of trying to avoid running this into the other area. So I think what I will do with this is that I will demonstrate the smart thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip working on this area up here and let this dry first, and I'll go and start working right here. Whoop. Got one running into the other because I wasn't quite as smart as I thought I was. There's a division down the middle of this. Okay. That's not a very good shape. And see, I put this paint down really juicy. It's really wet. And that buys me time. If you're working too dry, this isn't going to work. So I'm trying to remember to hold my paper towel out here So you can kind of see what I'm doing. My paper towel is a painting tool. Okay, that's a little strange looking right now, but I think that'll be good. Now, because I got it kind of wet up here, I'm going to avoid that spot for now. Oops. I want a brush. And let's see, let's come down here. Let's separate this petal from that petal. I'm going to separate a little bit more than what I really see in the picture. Okay, I'm going to soften this. And I didn't get that quite as wet as I've been working. I meant to, it was just accidental that I didn't. So let's just pull a little of that up. This way I'm putting a little bit of pressure on it. I think that'll be okay. And remember, this thing is going to be purpley colored. And this, ooh, this is part of that. Oops. Okay, that looks better. Makes more sense. Not that they have to make sense. Okay, so again, we're skipping around. So I'm going to come over here and do this area. Because see, that's deep inside here. That's this area right here. A lot of juicy paint. That should be enough. I'm going to turn that this way because it's just easier for me. Raking the extra water off, but this has got room for quite a bit of water, so I didn't bother. Ooh, that's a little too wet. Well, what do? Well, let's just take some extra water off the brush. And let's see what's happening here. Maybe we'll like it is. You know, I think we will. So never mind fixing it. Okay, so this is covered up part of my masking, but that doesn't mean that the masking's not working. Okay, so we're letting those dry. This is a little more difficult. Now, I treated this flower all as one the first time. See, and now I'm beginning to make divisions and separations here. There's a little dark area up in here that's extra dark. A little bit of a center division that you can still see there. It's pretty subtle. So, oh, it looks like an upside down arrow. So let's rake this off. I think that'll be about right because I've got a big area here. Now, what do I do there? Let's see. Let's go to the other side because I don't want any of this to dry. You notice that each time I do something, I go ahead and bleed it out. I don't do a bunch of stuff and then go back and add water because stuff will be drying and bad things will happen. So now I'm going to the outside of the new outside edge of where the water is. Like that. See, because I don't know if this shows on camera, but there's an edge here. And so I put a new edge onto the old edge. And that pretty much fades it out to nowhere. There. Ah. Okay. Down here. By the way, we're going to have to do a lot of work on those stamens to get them dark enough when the time comes. So they're going to look ridiculous when we first take this down. Now, this area right in here is sort of between, we can't even see it there. Let me see if we can see it here. Here's the petal, and here's a petal, and right there where they merge, there's a little space in there, but you can't even see it because it goes dark. So right here, where this space is, I'm just going to treat all this as one for now. I'll find a way to get darker and divide this up more later. So I'm going to do that. And then rake that off. Rake it off. See, clean water. Well, sort of clean. See, I didn't get paint in there. So let's get to this before it starts to dry. So we're treating these bottom 3 petals as though they're really one. And then later we'll come separate them. Don't try to separate them yet, because you need a lot more darks in here anyway. Now, I want to soften that edge. Soften this edge. Whew. And let's look at this gizmo right here. I altered it a little bit. I opened it just a little bit, made it a little fatter. So I'm kind of making this up here. I'm making this part a little more shaded behind this petal. Squeezing it out, sucking it up. Raking it off, and I think we'll take up just a little extra water right there. This Viva paper towel is a painting tool, just like my brush is. It lets me adjust the amount of water exactly to get what I want. Wish Viva would pay me for this. Well, I got a little run right there, and I don't care. Okay, time for a break. That takes a lot of, you have to really, I'm really focusing. So don't feel that I may be doing it a little faster than you feel like you can. By the way, see, I've got it eaten up looking place there, and it doesn't bother me in the least. I don't think it hurts this a bit. This area might try to do the same thing. I can take a clean brush, squeeze it out a little bit, and just gently go over that if I want to, if I'm concerned about it. That's if I was trying to get it really smooth, and I really don't care to. See, that area is not terribly smooth. That's not. I think it looks fine. I think it's going to make a very good looking painting. Okay, break time.